and make sure you have information that will help you understand, how we intend to repurpose facilities in the school district based on campuses that were right-sized and other properties that the district, still has that are not currently being occupied. We're also going to share a bond update with you. You can tell that there has been some investment in this campus, over the last few years, and we want to provide some additional updates for you in that regard as well. Before we get into that, I will introduce a few of the individuals who are going to be presenting to you this evening, but I first want to thank Dr. Pruitt for hosting. So thank you, Dr. Pruitt, principal at Highlands. I also want to introduce a couple of our facility repurposing panel members, and I think we're expecting one or two more, but one of our members is Mr. Jason Mims. Thank you, Mr. Mims. You'll hear a little bit more about the work that they've been doing when Ernest speaks with you, because they've invested lots of personal time and energy into this process to make sure that the district, is really following some best practices with respect to making decisions about our vacant facilities. In addition to that, Michelle, are you or Yvonne going to do Yvonne's going to do the bond? Okay, Yvonne's back there. Yvonne Little, our Senior Executive Director with Construction and Bond Management. She's going to present information to you. And then Ernest Gonzalez is going to kind of talk to you about the facility repurposing process. Let's see, I think those are the ones who are on the agenda. If our other facility repurposing panel members come in, I'll certainly be happy to introduce them and to thank them for their work. Also sharing regrets from Trustee Leticia Ozuna. She had an accident, is unable to be here. I think she's joining us on Zoom so that she can commit and connect that way. But this won't be the last time we come out, and that we'll invite you to join us for other updates, especially about repurposing and also about bond. So with that, I'm going to ask Ernest Gonzalez. No, I think Yvonne Little is coming up first to share information about our bond updates. Okay, Yvonne.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Hi, I am Yvonne Little, Senior Executive Director of Planning Construction, and thank you for having me here tonight to share all the great things that we're doing with Bond 2020. We're really excited that the progression of Highlands is going. We had some delays with long lead items and making sure that we get the right equipment for your campus, but we've really been able to persevere and get over those humps, and we're really excited on the upcoming turnover of your facilities. So. Do we have a slide up there? Yes. So right now, the project is nearing completion. We have an improved bus loop that's already been completed, and the band pad is in progress. The tail end of the completion of the gym will be finished here, we're hoping, by the end of the year. And a lot of those new spaces will be new weight rooms and all those support spaces for the gym. And then you'll have your brand new gym coming in the spring semester. So we're very, very excited about all those improvements we were able to bring to Highlands High School. And did you want me to take questions right now regarding anything? Sure, we can take a couple. If there's anything about bond, I'm happy to answer them. Well, I'm going to definitely stick around, so please come find me if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, I wanted to start by saying thank you so much for being here. I see a lot of young faces in the crowd today, so that's exciting. Thank you all for taking time to be with us and get an update on what's been happening with our facilities repurposing process. So, to help you understand the story, last fall, the school board voted to right-size, which means that we closed and consolidated schools in the district. We face some very serious challenges in our district, and it's not just our school district, it's something that's happening across the country. Many different school districts are facing these challenges. One, it's underfunding. We're not getting the right money from the state that we should be, but it's also combined with other issues like under-enrollment. Over the past 20 years, there's about 20,000 less students in SAISD than there used to be. And we've kept the same number of buildings open this entire time. we researched it and we found out there's various reasons why there's not the students here. Number one, people just aren't having as many kids as they used to. Older generations had 8, 10, 5 kids, lots of Theos and Theas, right? But now not as much, maybe 1 or 2 kids. There's other issues too where it's becoming more expensive to live within the SAISD border or area, so families are looking for housing that's more affordable out west, like Medina Valley, for example, that's one. So these are facing the funding issue along with the under-enrollment and keeping the same number of buildings has created challenges where we find it difficult to provide all of the resources that we need for our students. We have to split up. There might be like a teacher, for example, that's teaching 2nd grade and 3rd grade at the same exact time. That's like one example of what we do. So right sizing was an approach for us to try to adapt to that challenge, right? So that means that we now have a lot of facilities. We have facilities throughout our district that can be reused in a way that we can continue serving the community. And that's what facilities repurposing is. In this single-member district, the Highland area, Highland High School area, we have 3 schools. You can see Highland Park, Steele, and Foster that are included. You can also see all of the other locations that are being included in the facilities repurposing process. And this slide here it's meant to give you an overview of the entire process. As you can see at the very beginning, one of the very first things we did after the board voted in favor of right sizing was to create a panel of stakeholders. These are community members like Mr. Mims here. There's 16 of these different members. Right now we have 14 filled, but they represent different sides of SAISD. They have different backgrounds. And the whole point of this panel is to give us advice and make recommendations, give us input on what this entire process is going to look like to take these buildings and figure out how we can reuse them for the community. The next step in the process that you can see is to obtain expertise. So we've put out a request for an expert that we can work with that's going to help us figuring out what the process is going to look like, how we might potentially group properties, how we will conduct research, like fully understanding what's in the neighborhood of the school, what community assets are there, what access to the roads are like, if it's close to the highway, if it's close to the bus, stops, things like that. And then, of course, community outreach and leading up to the point where we will look for proposals. We will reach out and see what ideas do you have for how you can reuse these buildings. Along the way, though, community engagement and public communication is a big priority for us. So we're doing things like tonight where we're letting you know what we've been up to, giving you updates, kind of like informing the process. So some things, until we can ensure that the buildings are reused and that we find good uses for the community, there's a couple of things that we've committed to along the way until that happens. Number one, we're committed to our community because we get questions of what kind of organizations are you thinking of renting or leasing to? So number one, something that's very important to us, top of the list, is making sure that these organizations, whatever they may be, that are aligned with our mission and our values, but also that these are services that the community wishes to see in those neighborhoods. One thing that we want to make very, very clear is that we would not lease any building to someone that's going to compete with us, that could lead to further students going away from SAISD. So an example might be a charter school. We also wanted to let you know that if someone comes in to lease a facility, it is possible to sublease to another organization, but that would mean that they need to come back to the district for approval first before that can happen. Safety, another big priority for the district. So we want to let the community know that these buildings are still going to be monitored by the San Antonio Independent School District Police. There's still security cameras, there's still burglar protection, they're still being monitored, and for 24 hours a day, if you live in the neighborhood and you see something happening, at any point of the day, you can call that number that's listed up there, 354-9000, and get a hold of the police dispatch so they can help out with whatever the issue may be. And then the third thing that we're committed to is responsible upkeep. So that means that we will continue to maintain the lawns, we're going to repair broken windows, and there's still going to be climate control, because if you don't do that, the buildings can deteriorate fast. So we're gonna have the climate control, but it's gonna be at a reduced level, at an unoccupied level. So I started talking a little bit earlier about the panel startup, and what I'd like to do is invite Mr. Mims to come up and talk a little bit about what that experience has been like, being a part of the panel. While he's coming up, this is a list of our panel members. It actually includes one student too, Mia Moore. She's pretty awesome. But yeah, they come from all over the district and lots of different experience, so it's pretty great.
Okay, so what we did, we started off in January with a couple of meetings that were 6 hours long, and we learned a little bit about what the idea was, the vision, and every month since then we've met. In the first 3 or 4 months, it was for 6 hours at a time, and we had most of 14 of the 16 members there, and we're from different perspectives. So what that allows us to do is share what we see and what we hear from members of our communities. And, you know, we found out that, or what I find is that there's been a lot of respectful dialogue amongst the members of the panel, as well as responsive support from the district, because the staff is there when we meet, and we have many questions. Well, what's this building really look like? How big is it? Many other issues we ask questions about, and they've been very responsive. So that's been the process, and what we found out is that it's going to take a minute before we get to the place where the consultant who's going to be running the process comes on board. But once that, and they'll be looking at the buildings in more detail, the facilities in more detail, and sharing information with us and members of the community, and they'll come up with the right plan to engage the community further in soliciting ideas, just hearing what people see, what people think, and then moving beyond that to a RFP process where organizations can submit proposals to the district, but we're not there yet. But this time frame that we're in right now is a good time to be listening to what people believe is right for their communities. And so I personally was at the Jefferson update and the Douglas update. I'll probably be at the Sam Houston update and maybe a couple of others. But the idea is we want to know what they see, what you see.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, if you see the Kindness Matters signs, you know Mr. Mims is there. So thank you for sharing that, Mr. Mims. We appreciate it. And I will say that from my perspective, we get to work with a lot of different advisory councils throughout the district. And in my opinion, I think others would agree that the members of the facilities repurposing panel, they're very active, highly committed, and they do push our thinking. And so I think you can rest assured that they have the community's interests at heart, and we appreciate that. The best way to get information on the process, the monthly meetings that we have, to submit an idea, to a question, whatever it is going to be through this website. We've been keeping it very, very current, week to week. So I encourage y'all to scan that QR code or go to that website that you see up there. It's saisd.net/repurpose. When you go there, you can see a schedule of the monthly meetings, which are all public and open. So if you wish to attend, you can. I just want you to know that they alternate between in-person and virtual. If you want to go to a virtual one, contact us through there. That way we can send you the link. We don't want to put it just onto the website for anybody to have the link. We just want to know that you're a real person. But yeah, go there. If you have an idea, question, we do want to hear it. And this is a great way to at least get that conversation started. So what we want to do is give you all opportunity to ask some questions, to see what's on your mind. If you have an idea, whatever it may be, there are a couple people with microphones, I think. Yes? And one over here, one over there, one over there. We're also taking notes too, so if we may not have the answer this evening, we'll be able to get back to you as well. We're capturing everything and going to include these.
Got it. Thank you. Hi, Dr. Hinojosa here. Real quick question. I guess Ms. Hassa, who I guess represents District 3 on the committee, she wasn't able to make it, or our trustee, Ozuna? Okay.
Ms. Ozuna, is she in Zoom? She's here by Zoom.
You're with us in technology spirit. A couple questions. I know if only SAISD can be a little more consistent. I know we had a meeting with the neighborhood associations and our presidents and everything with Dr. Aquino. And at the very beginning, we were told this was not a financial thing. Just we had too many buildings, not enough kids. But the message seems to be changing now that, it's kind of because we're not getting enough money from the state and all that. Just kind of a comment. Second thing is the consultant. I know at the Highland Hills Neighborhood Association, we had last month, we had SAISD present, and we had Deputy Superintendent Salzman and Ms. Hassel there to kind of give us more information about this process. And I guess the consultant came up, and do we know how much are we paying the consultant to figure out what happens to our buildings that we vacated? That's a question for now.
Sure. So to the first question about whether right sizing is about money or not, it's not per se about money in terms of us being able to say we want to pull all this money back in so we can make money. It's about us being able to get the resources out to the students. So in a way, that's what it's really about. In terms of the consultant, all of that's still being negotiated. So I wouldn't have any more information about it at this time. There was a consultant named the Counselors of Real Estate, and I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but they came in through a grant from the San Antonio Board of Realtors, and so they came in to conduct some research and give us some advice and guidance, and that was free of charge.
Hello, I'm Jacob Ramos. I'm a District 3 resident, and I graduated from Highlands. So you're saying that, we could close schools to combine resources to help our students. So I would like to know how we are spending that extra money for those resources to actually help our students. Like, how is that being used right now? Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Patty Salzman, Deputy Superintendent. The dollars that we were investing in these buildings, because we had so many buildings, I think part of it, and I think it goes to the gentleman's question about, is this about making money? Whenever we don't generate enough funds to run a school, it means that those schools cannot invest their dollars in resources that they need for instruction. And I'll give you an example. A very small school may not even generate enough funds to cover all their staff. They definitely won't have enough money for supplementary staff that they might want, like an instructional coach that could help teachers and coach teachers. They may not have additional funds for a family and community engagement specialist that they might feel is very important to help lead efforts to connect families to school. When a school is very small, What we then have to do is we have to take funds from other larger schools, in essence, and divert it to small schools. So essentially, when we operate too many buildings and we don't have more money from the state, which we have not received more money from the state since 2019, and we've had a lot of inflation since then, so our costs are increasing, what it means is we have less money for resources and services at our schools. So by closing schools, it allowed us to bring students together to make larger schools that can generate more dollars to be able to have the staff they need. So if you recall, a couple of years ago, we had schools, they were cutting their librarians, they were cutting their FACE specialists, they were cutting some of the things that we might consider supplementary, like extra field trips. Many of those things have been returned to schools. Now, it's returned to schools in their administrative staffing formula, and the principal would determine how best to spend the dollars. One principal might choose an instructional coach. That's how they might want to spend their money. Another principal might say, I want to spend it on more instructional resources. Yet another principal might say, I want to hire a family and community engagement specialist. So most immediately, the way schools felt some relief is by generating additional dollars for their schools that then the principal could use and divert to whatever the school need was. Now, we are always looking for ways to divert more funds to schools, and so we'll continue to do that. What we're not, as Ernest mentioned, what we're not intending to do is become a real estate agency where we're making money. What we do intend to do is relieve the district of the burden of carrying that facility and managing it, while at the same time supporting the community by providing an essential service that the community feels is valuable. So in one community, it might look like, in one community they said, you know what we need? We have a food desert. We want a micro HEB. We want a micro grocery store. Another community says, we don't need that. You know what we need? We need a satellite social services agency so that we have mental health services within our community. We don't feel that as the district, we should make that decision. That's one of the reasons we have the Facility Repurposing Committee, so that we can have strong systems and structures in place so that we can go out to the community and we can take requests for proposals that we can share with the community, and the community can help us make an informed decision. Because ultimately, our goal is that these buildings remain maintained and serve the community in some essential way that the community helps inform us around. So does that help, Mr. Ramos? Yeah.
You mentioned, majority of them we still don't have. So it's, you know, I don't see it. I understand the struggle, but we still don't have those things.
Right, and in order for me to completely answer that, I would probably have to go specifically to a school to determine how dollars were spent. If you're talking, let's say Steele, for example, because I know that that's one school that you're very interested in. One of the most immediate things that happened is we were able to move those students out of a building that really had significant structural issues into a very nice building that has enough footprint that if they needed to expand, we could do that. And I think that was part of the conversation. So there are many benefits, some of them direct financial and maybe immediate, and some benefits may be long-term. And this is one example. For example, steel. The bond dollars that were available were not going to be able to completely bring that building up to standard because there were so many structural issues. But this was one way to both make a stronger school, and I'll talk about why I say that, but also help a school find a facility, because that Montessori program is a very strong program. But it wasn't in a strong, structurally sound building, and so now we can do that. Put it and make better use of those dollars. And the reason I say, again, a stronger school is because there really is somewhat of a minimum threshold, a number that you need in your school to generate enough resources so that you can have all of those essential plus services. So yes, the teacher, yes, the counselor, yes, the nurse, but also some of those other types of services that our principals find valuable. So we have many principals that believe that instructional coach is important, or those field trips, or those other things. When you have a very small school, it's incredibly challenging to do that. It's harder to do almost everything. It's harder to accept students because now you have an imbalanced class, but instead of being able to split those students over 3 teachers, you might only have 1 first grade teacher. So then it leads sometimes to an imbalance of class, an oversized class, you know, those kinds of things. So there is certainly a place where your school can be too big, but I don't think any of our schools in SAISD are at risk of that. We do have relatively small schools even after right sizing. But this again, although we cannot talk about school improvement without also talking about the dollars that are attached to it. The primary purpose of doing this is because many buildings with few students makes it very challenging to provide the services at these schools individually that we could do by combining them and having a few more students in that building. That's my long answer.
Hello. My name is Riley Reyes. I'm a student here at Highlands High School. I have some questions about what are the plans that you guys have for these buildings that are now not being used as schools anymore? I was in the student advisory committee this last year, and one of the topics we went over was about right sizing, our thoughts on it, and what to do with these empty schools. We came up with the idea of using them as a sort of health hub for kind of like, what is the word again? Like stuff like feminine products, hygiene products, deodorant, anything relating to health that people might not be able to afford. We wanted to make one of these buildings and a way to have all these families access all this stuff, because it can be hard to get all that stuff sometimes. And I wanted to know if y'all were taking that into consideration or if it was even brought to your attention at all.
Well, thank you for your question. Thank you for being here and also for serving on the Student Advisory Council. I got to sit in on one of the meetings, and the work that y'all do really honestly impresses me. I'm grateful to be a part of that and to watch y'all do your thing. So I would encourage anybody that has ideas like yours to just be involved in these meetings. That website's going to list out all the future meetings that we have where we're going to be collecting ideas like that. Even tonight, we're capturing that and going to include it in what we have. In terms of have other people brought that up, that's definitely something that other people have mentioned. They've mentioned healthcare, mental health care, just to name some other ideas that I've heard, affordable housing for teachers, even, you know, and other district staff. I'm blanking out on some of the other ones, but early health care, early care for 0 to 3 children, other services that could still help students like STEM, fine arts, those were really popular as well. So there's a lot of ideas that we have collected so far, but our goal in going out to the community and coming up is gonna be to get as many of those ideas as possible. So I just wanna say thank you for sharing that and stay involved. We need, you know, young people involved in the process.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Sulema, and I'm an alumni here at Highlands and also a parent at Jaffet. And I guess my question is, when are we going to know when those resources are going to kick in? So, like, our school didn't have a librarian and still doesn't. And so is there a time frame for that? And also, are we going to be looking into the principals and how they're spending their dollars, and when will we know that?
So the principals do have instructional superintendents that work with them on their administrative budgets and how they're making those determinations. So we do have certain positions that we absolutely require. For example, a counselor. You can't opt out of a counselor. We would love for every school to have a librarian, but a principal might make a different determination, and I would have to know more about Japhet to be able to understand what their decision was. But almost immediately, we were able to view some benefits from the school closures. One is a better balanced budget that went out to our campuses. So they got those on paper in the spring, and then they were able to plan their budgets around those. And then also, you may know that we've had, like many businesses, we've also had some staffing shortages. And so we were able to, for example, in the area of custodians, we were able to then redistribute them. So some schools that needed additional custodians were able to get those based on the square footage of their building, the enrollment, the complexity. I guess I'll just call it a complexity. We don't really assign by enrollment, but there's something about the number of physical buildings on a site that might dictate a need for more custodians. And in a staff shortage area like that, like special education, like bilingual services, we've been able to see some immediate benefits, because it's very difficult to completely staff a school with our talent pipelines being so thin. And again, that is not unique to San Antonio ISD. That is across the country. It's just something that we have been dealing with for many years, and it's certainly gotten more challenging after COVID. I would say we are in better position than many districts in that regard, but those are some of the most immediate benefits that we've seen. Over time, we expect to see others, but again, from the district's perspective, certainly dollars are important, but the most important thing for us as an educational institution is to reap the benefits of being able to deliver a quality education to our students. That's what's driving this decision. And so that is what we are really moving towards. I'll just stay up here with you, Ernest.
Question, Ms. Salzman, you reminded me, a steel parent with my two kids going there. We moved, great facility. I mean, my brothers went to Forbes when it was brand new. It's not an old building. But the question I have for District 3 is Highland Park and Steel, which are both vacant, both have significant foundation problems. Is that going to affect whatever decision, because I'm assuming it's going to be a multi-year, and the other thing would be Foster is now housing all the Kate Shank kids for about 2 school years. So I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of delay, at least for District 3. Can you elaborate on that?
Mm-hmm. So we could have made a decision that in the construction of Shank, we kept the Shank kids there. But it's incredibly difficult to do a massive construction project and keep people on the property. The project moves much more slowly. There are a lot more considerations that they have to have, times when they can and cannot work, etc. So because we were able to have a vacant Foster building, we were able to move all of Shank into Foster temporarily. At the conclusion of the construction of Shank, it is going to be a magnificent building. State of the art. We'll move all of those children back to Shank, and then we'll repurpose at that time Foster. It'll come on the list to be repurposed. Highland Park and Steel do have structural issues. We suspect that many people who will be interested in our facilities will want to do something with the facility. At least that's what we've learned in our research from around the country. They don't often come in and occupy the building as is. They come in with dollars willing to invest, because what we intend to do is create leases that make it worthy of their investment. So it's not a 5-year lease or 6-year lease. We're talking 30 years, 50 years. So they're willing to put in the investment, because they'll be able to also reap some benefit. Their benefit might be to be able to expand services for the community. For example, I'll give this example, like that you had brought up about more, health services support. It could be that we have an agency, University Health or Metro Health or someone that's willing to come and invest, and they want, in lieu of paying rent on a facility or constructing a facility, they're able to use our facility for many years for a low cost, and they're able to then divert more of their money into the services that they're trying to provide in the community. And so they feel that that's a win for them. They won't absorb so many of their dollars in overhead for a building. And so for us, it's a win-win. We won't carry the overhead of the building. They will, but they won't have to pay rent on it or have to pay for the new construction on a new building. And thus, they'll be able to put more money towards the services. So we feel like there will be entities that would be interested in our buildings, maybe as is. Maybe they say, we're just going to put a new marquee. But then we suspect there'll be some that will ask us to be able to modify the building and make some adjustments to it over a very long period of time that they will own the lease or hold the lease. And then that's where we would have to go into negotiations with our attorneys. We'll have to ask the questions. Does this make sense for SAISD? Would we carry any financial burden when we receive the building back in 50 years, should they not want to occupy it? So there are all those complexities that attorneys would help us figure out. But we do believe that regardless of the condition of the building, there will be some that are highly sought after. Multiple entities will want to be in that building for whatever reason, location, history, etc. And then there might be others that might be a little more challenging. And in situations like this, we said we're going to be open. For example, during our community meetings, one of the things we discussed was, what if the city came and said, we want to make this a green space? Would we be open to that conversation, just completely taking the building down and making it a green space for the community? And we said we would be open to that conversation. We have made no commitments during our community meetings. That's why we need this process, because we want to be fair, we want to be equitable, we want to be transparent, we want everyone to have the ability to weigh in on what they believe needs to happen in their community. But we're open to these conversations because the community might actually need that space. We are aware that there are some communities, they have no place for their young people to go and, play a basketball game on the weekend because they don't have a park that they can do that at. So we just want to be open and have those conversations and measure very carefully the financial impact it would have on us and the impact it would have on the community and how well that matches with the community's interests. So we are hopeful and believe that we'll have a plan for Highland Park and for Steele. When, we don't know. That's why we have this process. Mm-hmm.
Y'all plan like the process to be a year, 2 years, 5 years? And as a community person, someone who went to Highlands and been here for 40, and next one will be 48 years. I look 24, right?
Yes,
I'm looking at my
do.
wife. And someone who sits on the San Antonio Zoning Commission, mm-hmm. There's a lot of developers looking in our area because of Brooks, basically. Right. So like some of those apartments right there on Pecan Valley and New Braunfels, they're going to redevelop those, and there's a lot of projects. So my hope for at least for Inez Foster is that we don't tear that down, because Kate Shank, I believe, is only going to hold 700 kids in the new building. And I know when I asked Miss
Little?
Miss Little, yes, I'm sorry. Miss Little, there you are. And she said, 700 kids. And I mentioned, Jubilee on Goliad, they can hold 1,000 kids. And she said, well, that's a Walmart brand. I mean, I think let's educate the kids, even if it's in a beautiful Walmart. I shop at Walmart because I'm cheap. You can ask my wife. But I wouldn't want a building to be destroyed or torn down and have a green space, just because I think, especially in District 3, especially Foster, there's going to be growth. And we need to, and maybe a 50-year lease, maybe not so long. I don't know how that would work, but I would like to reclaim some of these schools, especially in District 3, because I know that so well, that there will be growth.
I live in District 3, right by Forbes. And so I hear what you're saying. You know, that 700, if you were to ask me, remember I said, like, there's this part where you can get so small, it's really hard. Anything below 400 is really hard. 700 is a sweet spot. That's a nice school, not too big. It's the Goldilocks school, not too big, not too small. You get rich resources. When you get beyond that, especially when you get beyond 800, 900, that's a very large school. You're looking at, 8 teachers at a grade level. It gets to be really big. We're not particularly interested in creating mega schools, but we are interested in making sure that our schools are robust, they have strong programs, and they have all the resources that they need. So I agree that this Brooks area is a changing area, and there is an enormous development at the Brooks City base that might eventually draw families. And we're very interested in affordable housing. We're very sensitive to the community, to our teachers, knowing how difficult and how high the housing prices have been. So again, we're going to be open to have those conversations. There are no decisions. There are definitely no decisions about Foster because it's occupied in our minds for the foreseeable future. So that's not even on the table for conversation right now because it's fully occupied. But I get your point, which is why we are enlisting the support of professionals, those that come free, those that have been partners with SAISD for many, many years, that are not part of a contract, just friends of SAISD that are trying to give us good and wise counsel. But I think that is why the process can't happen really fast, because we have to make sure that we make good financial decisions for the district, and where it makes sense, we hold on to the properties. Where it makes sense, we hold on to them as school buildings. And where it might make sense to do something else, we consider those possibilities. And so that's part of the reason we have our attorneys involved. We'll be doing market studies, market analysis. We have our landscape analysis. We're looking at demographic data, growth of school-age children populations in the communities. We'll be looking at all of that information so that we can really make good decisions. So Foster's like way out there in the future. I suspect, if you asked me, based on what we know, what would I be satisfied in a year, what progress we've made? In a year, I would be very satisfied if we had a clearly defined process for how we make determinations about what happens to our building that's transparent and that is equitable and that has sound oversight through our facility repurposing panel. And if we could make a decision on 1 or 2 buildings by this time next year or by December of 2025, I will be very happy about that. The negotiation over something like this is extremely time consuming because now you have attorneys going back and forth talking about things like who's going to change the air filter and the chiller and what happens if it breaks and who mows the lawn. And there are a lot of little decisions that have to go into a complex contract like this. So we don't want to move at a snail's pace, but we also don't want to move too fast, that we make decisions that won't withstand the test of time, because we know that the schooling landscape is very dynamic. And so we'll be looking at a lot of data and information as we work with the community to make these decisions. And it's our goal to share that information. We won't keep it hidden. We'll say, here's the data that we've received on this community. This is why we think these decisions are sound or these proposals are sound. And so we'll share that with the community and certainly with Foster when the time comes. If it's not going to go back to a school in 2 years, we don't know. That Brooks City base is really, I don't know if you've been out there, but they've got multiple single family complexes going up in that community. I think at the last time we were there, because we meet with them periodically, I think they were putting up a new development that was 10,000 family units. So it's growing fast. Any questions?
So firstly, I am not part of this community. I'm part of East Central, but I work in downtown. I'm an architect with a firm downtown. These are my students at UTSA, and we're also looking at this repurposing plan and the strategies that you guys are putting out there, and we'd like to partner with you in some respect on generating those ideas. So they're here to be flies on the wall, so to speak, and hear your needs and your concerns. But also, we're going to spend the semester generating ideas that dovetail right into this scenario. And I just wanted to say, from the standpoint of the process, I think it would be interesting if you thought about it much like Brooks is looking at the development, or the other developments around town are looking at strategies where you build basically a design standard set, and then that is what goes out in the RFP, so that anyone that's coming to you to take these sites or look at these sites, you're trying to find strategic partners, and you're trying to find those synergies that really build for the community. And I think that would be really important just to convey and to share within that process document, whatever the outcome may be. And whoever your consultant is, the idea that it's going to take strategy and facilitation, community facilitation, to understand what the real needs are, and all that study that parlays with it. So, like I said, we're going to be doing some of that, probably in a surface level degree, but just know that we're here to help partner and generate that with you guys.
And kudos to you. I bet you can list a whole bunch of things you could be doing tonight, and the fact that you chose to be here is a testament to your commitment to your education, and we would love to partner with you. We always try to have students participating. She talked about being on the Student Advisory Council. It's a pretty large council. They actually supported right sizing for all the reasons that we discussed, and we'd love to partner with you to talk through some of those ideas. And we haven't made a decision on a consultant. And so we still have to weigh a whole lot of things in that decision. It's still in the embargo process, so we really can't discuss further than that. But it is our goal to make sure that however we proceed, whether it's through a consultant or not, that we have expertise around our table so that we can make really thoughtful decisions about the district, considering many of the things that you discussed. But your students might be interested in reading the RFQ just to see what we were calling for, because it'll outline what we were envisioning.
Oh, just a note, this is day 2 of our studio.
Day 2, woo! Way to jump in there, way to jump in there. Yes, and Ms. Ozuna, our trustee, thanks you for being here, and thanks you in advance for your contribution. So this is really exciting. And we exchange contact information, so I think Beth and I are going to be going to your class at some point and
Excellent.
Doing some synergistic things there.
The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I know this is probably not where you were going with the leasability of the sites. It sounds like you're providing ground lease or building lease to entities that really just want to share in it, and I guess they would be leveraging tax incentives or whatever to remedy their investment. But from the standpoint of, obviously you don't want to be building management owners or land use owners, but there is some benefit or potential benefit that you could do if you did charge a lease agreement. If you're building a 50-year lease, maybe the first 5 years or first 10 years are a $0, but then it builds into something more, and then that revenue could be generated for that particular community or service the schools in that particular community. So just food for thought on that. Just as you, and I'm sure you've probably already talked about this, but as you look at it, you know, that could help you kind of have some of that return on investment and build those resources that are so needed for all these communities that you're serving.
Yeah, thank you. That's a hybrid approach, right? That it's not one or the other, maybe a combination. So we have people there taking the notes, and we'll feed that back to the facility repurposing panel when we meet with them to share that information. That was great. Great recommendation.
I was wondering, is it possible for us to find out who Brooks used when they, I guess, repurposed their buildings? Because a lot of the buildings that are in the Brooks city-based area were old. You know, they're leasing them out to universities, or they did, like, you know, said housing. Is it possible for us to find out who maybe they used?
So right now, their development strategy is that it's purely a land deal. So they solicit to entities that want to come in here. So they're really targeting developers that are in that space and know how to develop, you know, existing buildings or land that may have possibly been brownfield or needs some remediation. What they end up doing is they say, okay, developer, I want you to buy the land and develop the property, and just because we're building this synergy with all these mixed use components that are out there, and we're building these single family or multifamily use land zones, that's your retail condition, or that's your you know, your patron that's coming to buy your goods and services. So that's how you're going to get your revenue back. So please invest in our land because we have this building around it to help generate the revenue for you. That's their strategy, and so far it's
been
working.
Very successful, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I know they have a board, right? But obviously, like, do they have someone to help them? Like,
They went to a number of consultants. Several architects have looked at strategies and master plan strategies for them. Overland was one of them. But they also went to some real estate strategic consultants to help them strategize on how they phase it and what the entity of land is.
Their mission's just a little bit different because they're trying to prop up a whole community. Their interest may not be in holding on to their buildings as much as it is developing the land to feed the businesses in the community to make a thriving ecosystem where families want to live, work, and play, essentially.
no, but it doesn't hurt to see what they have to say.
Oh, yeah,
Or
absolutely.
what I'm getting at is, like,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to see what they have to say. Like, we know we're trying to do something different, but, I mean, it doesn't hurt to see what they try to say. Because we want it to be
Absolutely.
beneficial, like you said, to the community. So, Mike, I got to have a question. So I have the mic right here. How much are y'all spending right now to maintain these schools that nobody's in?
You know, I don't know that I can quantify, but it's a lot less than when it was occupied because, again, as Ernest said, they are running an unoccupied status, meaning, you know, when you're not home, you're going to be out on vacation, you don't keep the thermostat real cool, you turn that up a little bit, your maintenance costs go way down because no one's in the building. You have people putting their eyes on it, maybe physically, maybe through cameras, just making sure that everything's running fine with the building, but the costs are way down because there are no kids in there. That's when we really get a lot of costs because we have to cool the buildings, maintain them. Things break when people are using them, so. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna turn my mic over to Ernest.
One last thing, y'all, before y'all leave. So participating here, very, very important, but we also wanted to share with you there's other ways to participate. So this slide is meant to show you that we have a bunch of advisory councils all throughout the district. I put a couple examples up there, for example, budget, special education, safety, operations, health, equity, education, you know, math, literacy. There is something for everybody depending on what you're interested in. I would encourage you to check out this website. It's saisd.net/advisory because right now we're trying to recruit So we need students, we need community members, parents, grandparents. There's one advisory council just for grandparents that are parenting. There's all kinds of advisory councils. So go there, check it out, apply. We want to have your input on to help us make our programs better, and we definitely want you to participate. We'll probably hang out too for a little bit in case y'all. Oh, one more question. Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment. I think that if we had some kind of technology or in math and science research brought over here for the young people, because we really need a lot of young people to join math and science, because a lot of the other countries are ahead of us on that. And I think it would bring a lot of jobs, good paying jobs, research facilities, something to bring on our south side of town, because we don't have it. Just a comment.
I appreciate
something to
that.
think about.
Yeah, that's similar feedback that we heard from others too, that they want to see some of those STEM-based activities and programs come back into the district. So thank you for sharing that. All right, thank you all so much for being here. There's additional, oh, no, that's the next slide, but we're hosting more meetings, so just be sure to check out the Repurpose website so you can participate in those. Thank you all, good night.